I'm Emily Hamblin, neurodivergent mom of four, certified teacher, and emotion coach for neurodivergent families. Today on the Enlightening Motherhood podcast, I've welcomed guest Wendy Snyder to come and talk to us about raising a strong-willed child, some tactics and tips that can make it easier, and also some extremely powerful reframes to help us start to see this child as a beautiful human, as the beautiful human that I believe they are, and to help you out in parenting this child. So glad you can join us. Can't wait to dive in. Welcome, Wendy. We are so excited to have you join us today.
Thank you for having me, Emily. I'm so happy to be here.
Wendy, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what it is you do, and how you got there?
I would love to. So I'm Wendy Snyder. I'm a positive parenting educator and family life coach. And I started this work and fell in love with positive parenting, which I now usually refer to as powerful parenting within our Fresh Start Family organization. I found it when I was really in the pits of parenting myself. I always thought I was going to be a great mom. I had worked with kids for a long time by the time I became a
I'm
mom.
smiling because I know where this is going.
And then I just really, gosh, I got my butt kicked in early motherhood. I was blessed with a very, very strong-willed little girl who's now 17. But when she was 3, I thought I was going to lose my mind. So I was trying all the traditional tactics, timeouts, and, making sure she lost her TV time if she didn't listen, and just, raising my voice or traditional punishment stuff that I thought would just work, right? And what I realized was that it was never going to work with her. And thank God she raised the red flag and we learned a new way. So I got introduced to a positive parenting class, and it changed my whole life when she was 3 years old. And once I started to learn firm and kind connection-based parenting strategies, I knew I wanted to spread them into the world from the mountaintop, so to speak, because most people, I realized, had no idea that they could really do things differently with their kids. So that's what I teach now, firm and kind connection-based parenting. I have an organization called Fresh Start Family, host of the Fresh Start Family show, and just help parents really go from stressed and frazzled to peaceful and empowered on a daily basis.
Oh, well, sounds like you're exactly in the right spot here with us. I want to just jump straight in. Did I just say dump straight? Okay, jump straight in. Gonna jump straight in now. You talk about raising a child that's strong-willed, and I can absolutely relate. If anyone's listening and they're wondering, wait, do I have a strong-willed kid? Do I not? What are some signs that they are raising a strong-willed child?
Yeah. So I really see kids in kind of two different buckets. There's kind of your average kiddo that hits power surge stages of life. So usually that's between the ages of 2 and 6, and then again in the tween and teen years. And that's really just part of human development. It's when a child is learning about autonomy and they're building their independence and they're creating healthy separation from the people they're most securely attached to. And so it's just makes sense that they would start saying no more and they would start to kind of question authority, so to speak. And we can see that as healthy and part of their human development. And it can come in hot, right? Like that's why you hear the term three-nager, or, things like people just lose their mind in the toddler years, because it can be a lot. And then again, tween and teen years is kids really start to push back, especially if there is a fear and force model of external control happening in the home. On the other hand, there is true strong-willed kids who really come into the world with a bang, and you can feel it quite early that they have a tendency to push back more than not. And so that's the category that my Stella falls into. We really could feel it from birth. We kind of joke that the traumatic emergency C-section that I had with her, thank God we're both alive and we made it, but we joke that she just didn't want to come out because she was so warm and comfy. And she really fought her way into this world, and she's made such a big difference. She's 17 years old now, and she just signed to be a D1 college athlete. She's going to be a beach volleyball player at a number 9 school in the nation. And it's an example of how that strong will, because thank God we learned to mentor and support and build it in a healthy way from a young age. She was able to have a high level of self-confidence along with humility, and really make her dreams come true and use that strong will for good. So, but for her, she had the strong will surges, or she had the power surges on top of her strong will. But throughout her life, you can see the consistencies of the strong will. And so a lot of times that just shows up as an incredible amount of what we would normally call defiance or difficulty. They often are fiercely independent. They often just have huge justice buttons. That means they're very sensitive to inequality, or if something seems unfair, they often will lose their minds over that before they're taught emotional literacy, like, you advocate for. And they just have a tendency to be outside of the box, right? So a lot of parents, it's like again, so much of what you help parents do is to not take a square peg and put it into a round circle hole. That's kind of what happens with strong-willed kids a lot, is people think that they're just these bad kids, or naughty, or selfish, or disobedient, or entitled, when really they're just built very uniquely, I believe, to be our next generation of leaders. And so if you can come beside them and see all those traits as gifts, and see how they often align with some of our greatest leaders in the world. So my heroes are people like Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, Malala Yousafzai. Like, these type of leaders have the same traits. They go against the grain, they challenge the status quo, they speak up, they believe deeply in themselves and their voice. And those traits that we would call like these incredible world leaders or change makers of the world, we kind of spin them negatively with kids and positively with the people that we respect. But we get to do that differently when we see them in a different light.
Oh, I love this so much. Yes, we want strong-willed leaders. I just don't want a strong-willed kid. It's the kind of the
Yeah.
subconscious thoughts that a lot of us have. And it makes sense. Like, I just want to say it makes sense that, I guess, when we think of what society teaches us and what we see on TV and what we see emphasized in social media, that having a child that's completely compliant, that always does exactly what you say when you say, it seems nice. Like, it really does. It just
Yeah.
seems so easy. And especially, I feel like society's told us that that's what good kids do. And you're a good parent if your kid is doing that. So if your kid is pushing against what you're telling them, well, they're a bad kid. And by default, you're a bad mom. And I love that you're here to change all of that. You're here to change 100% of how we view children with stronger wills. And they're not a curse, but rather they're really a big blessing to our family and to this world. So let's talk a little bit about that paradigm shift there.
Yeah. Just this morning, I had a great opportunity with one of my full mastery or higher level students when we were chatting about a success story he actually had with his little, very strong-willed 7-year-old. He's over in the UK and he's doing incredible work with his family to really lead and like upgrade his legacy the way he's doing and leading his children. But he had said something like, hey, today I taught my little girl, like, oh, she was unhappy with the way her friends were doing something. And we sat down and we got creative with how she can lead them, instead of like being annoyed and irritated and frustrated that they're not listening to her on the playground. And she was so receptive to this idea of being able to offer choices and engage with her friends in a different way. And it was such a great example of how he was starting to mentor and teach her how to lead versus just label her as being bossy or difficult or whatever it may be. But when it comes to the opportunity in changing the paradigm, it is such an incredible moment for parents when they realize that these kids are actually the red flag raisers, so to speak, who come in and actually will often invite an entire family, especially the set of parents, into healing if they accept the invitation. And so as I was working with that incredible father this morning, he was saying, yep, you're right, Wendy, she's going to be a great leader one day. And I was like, Phil, she's already a great leader, because already at the age of 7, she is the reason why you are here, learning to use firm and kind connection-based strategies instead of fear and force in your home. She's already at 7 years old the like leading your family into a legacy upgrading path and trajectory,
Mm.
right? And so they really are just very powerful in bringing us health and a state of thriving if we can embrace humility as a superpower, right? And so that's where we get to start seeing, oh, okay, is what we're doing working? Is there unity and connection happening in our home? Or when we are trying kind of the more what I call hand-me-down parenting tactics,
Yeah.
is there chaos? Is there division? Is there kids melting down and tantruming and everyone goes to bed in tears? Is there kids learning from the discipline strategies, or are they repeating the same misbehavior next week? Like, we get to look at that with humility and say, is this working? Or is this kid possibly raising a red flag and saying, huh, I might be modeling the exact thing I'm telling this child to stop doing. That's another thing about strong-willed children is they have the most beautiful allergy to hypocrisy. They
Mm.
cannot and will not stand it. And I believe that living in hypocrisy is an awful way to live because it leads to a victim mindset. It leads to, woe is me, like, oh, I don't like, and it's like, no, you have the power to change your family. If you want a child to start responding versus reacting when they're super annoyed at their brother, you have to start modeling that first. And if you are stuck in a reactive pattern of explosiveness or frustration, irritation, tony responses, aggressive behavior, it took me 7 years to stop yelling, any of that kind of stuff, and you are expecting a child to do it differently without you going first, it's just a great example of hypocrisy that does not work with strong-willed kids. So you see what I'm getting at, Emily? They are just incredible gifts that, again, you have to see humility as a superpower like Mother Teresa did. But once you tap into that, it's just so cool what can happen when you start to come beside a strong-willed child and be like, okay, like we're going to learn how to have firm and kind leadership and how to share the power in our home, because that old school dominating my way or the highway, which is what we call autocratic parenting, it's just for many of us what we decide we're not going to pass on to our children.
Mm. I love that. So much of this. It is, I just want to recognize for everyone listening, it's really natural to parent the way we were parented. And even in instances like for me, where I always said, okay, I'm going to make these changes as a parent. And when I'm a parent, I'm not going to yell at my kids and, all of the things. Then I became a parent and I was yelling at my kids and I was doing all the things I said I wouldn't. And that there's nothing wrong with you if you find yourself in that situation. It just means you haven't yet found the strategies and the tools and the support that you need to change. And often the change is very unique and individualized. And it's not just like a 30-second reel that we find on TikTok. And suddenly I stop yelling, even if the reel says
Yeah.
how to stop yelling in 30 seconds. It's probably not, it's probably going to be a bit deeper than that. So I just want to recognize that it's okay for parents that are there. The biggest thing is that you're making a choice to change it.
Yeah, it's true. And some of our worst moments as parents can be the opportunity for the biggest change. Like some
Yes.
of my worst, most embarrassing, awful, regretful moments as a parent, I remember doubling down on mentorship,
Mm-hmm.
buying the private session, finally going to the weekend healing course, like booking the therapy or the mentorship session, because it was just like, oh, you wake up and you're like, oh, this is not good, right? But it'll often, the lows have to happen, right? Where you scream so loud in your kid's face that they just start crying, right? These, I have so many stories, Emily, you don't
I
even
have that.
know, right?
I have that one. Yeah, for sure. But you're
Yeah,
right.
I've
That's when
written,
I made the choice. Like, oh, something needs to change. And the change needs to start with me, not waiting for my husband or the teacher or the therapist or no, like I'm the one that's going to step into this role. And there's so much power when you decide to stop blaming and just start stepping into the power that you already have.
exactly. That's why I call it powerful parenting, Emily. You get
Yes.
it.
Yes. So good. So good. Okay. So at the same time, I also recognize it is a lot harder to parent strong-willed kids than super compliant kids, even though they're a blessing, even though, they can be a blessing to our family now and definitely in the future. But it's hard, right? What are some tactics to make it easier?
Yeah. Oh, good question. Well, I will say that I believe all children come with their own unique challenges. And I will say that a lot of the more air quotes, easygoing, mild childs of the world, they hit their own seasons where there's difficulty, right? Like my little boy, who's 14 now, he was always again the more chill one. Like he might push back a little bit and be like, no, no, but after like 3 times, he's like, okay, fine. Stella, is like 17 times. She'll say, no, no, no. How about this? And you're just like, finally, before you get that child to say yes, right? But he struggled with separation anxiety really bad. He
Mm.
struggled with anxiety really bad, right? And the tools that we teach, they equally supported him in all of his unique challenges of growing up and being human and learning how to work with his own unique set, his own personality. But all children are going to, at some point, give you a run for your money, so to speak. And those children are often the ones that, you might have to help them with stage fright or speaking up for themselves or not caving to peer pressure. Like they all have their own things, right? And oftentimes it comes at different times. But yes, I know what you mean about like it can feel harder with strong-willed kids. So here's what I think I would say. Some things that make it easier is just to understand that learning to share power with your strong-willed child is smart, not weak, not permissive. So a lot of people think positive parenting is permissive parenting. Couldn't be farther from the truth. Positive parenting, or again, what we call powerful parenting here, is you actually learn to say no, oftentimes more than people who are doing kind of the classic hand-me-down stuff. So you become very confident and strong, right? And at the same time, you remain very connected with your kids, but you are sharing the power. You have a mindset that you are raising a future leader, and in order to do that, you have to give them opportunities to lead. And when you fill their need to feel powerful bucket up, they thrive. You see their little nervous system relax. They become happier kids. They're often like edgy kids. I call strong-willed kids cactus kids because a lot of times they are just pokey, but they become softer children when they are given opportunities to lead. So start playing a game on a daily basis. And this is what we teach inside of our programs. We teach 10 strategies to fill up their little power bucket every single day, how they can feel powerful, because we find that kids who are allowed to feel powerful in the home, they demand it less out in the world through unhealthy ways. But like bullying, for example, or risky behavior, like the need to feel powerful, the need to belong gets met in very unhealthy ways if you're not teaching your children how to feel powerful in healthy ways. So when my kids were little, that looked like sports, like, oh my gosh, my Stella would just thrive as she learned to play beach volleyball and she would win a match. And she got to feel powerful in this healthy way, or when she would hit the ball really hard. We also got her into drumming. She became a very proficient drummer at a young age. These are examples of how to feel powerful in a healthy way. Other smaller examples is she would want to sell rocks at 9 a.m. on a Monday morning. And I'm like, no, that's crazy. You're not going to make money selling rocks on a Monday. Sure, but because I was in this work, I would say, you know what? Let me just lean into like letting her lead here. That morning, I think she made $16 on our front corner from grandmas and nannies walking by and like buying painted rocks. Just putting them in charge of things sometimes, making them the boss of the seatbelts when you get in the car, or giving a 2-year-old toddler the ability to throw away his own diaper in the diaper genie. Like just little deposits like this make a big difference. So that's kind of the preventative answer, is like just start in that. And there's a million answers, but I think I'll keep it at that for now. Is that's one way to start seeing that you will see your strong-willed children push back less when you give them more opportunities to lead.
Oh, this is great. And I love this reminder of making it an everyday thing. Even the little shifts in our family from, no, let me show you how to load the dishes in the dishwasher, to, hey, is it okay if I show you how to load the dishes in the dishwasher? And just stepping back and letting them say yes or no. And if they say no, I'm like, well, obviously they're not ready to learn anyways, so we'll try later. And then if they say yes, then they feel just, a micro moment of control. And in that little shift all day long from me telling them what to do to me helping collaborate about what we're doing. A lot of parents say, well, doesn't that put the kid in too much power or devalue the parent's authority? And I'm like, no, no, no. It teaches your child collaboration. It teaches them problem solving. It teaches them teamwork. It teaches them to think more for themselves. Like these are incredible life skills, and we can start so small, right? We can start so small. And even if, like me, you have neurodivergence and you have 4 kids and you feel like life is crazy, like there's still so many small things you can do every day that make a huge difference.
I love that. Yes, what a great example about the dishwasher. So cool, Emily. Yes.
Oh, and I also love your cactus example because we live in Arizona where not a lot of plants live. Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of plants that will just die here, but the cactuses, there are survivors. They're always around. And so,
They're
like,
incredibly tough. Yeah. And I always say that they have the most sensitive core deep down
mm,
inside, right? Like we all
yeah.
know, like if you, maybe not everyone knows this, but like if you open up a cactus and like, I mean, there's like, you can have cactus tacos. Cactus is pretty good. It's got a very soft center, but they have an incredible toughness about them.
Mm.
And they flower. A lot of they have the most beautiful flowers. I remember the day, speaking of cactus kids or cacti, and I at my house in Southern California, I have succulents and cacti only because it's like the only thing I can keep alive because they're so like if you give me a flower for Easter, it's gonna die. I'm sorry. It's just not gonna survive. It doesn't work. But I swear, I had put these like flower basket things in my back fence. Like it must have been like 5, 7 years or something. And I put a lot of succulents and cacti in them. And I'll never forget the day my little boy came out. I feel like it had been 7 years. And he was like, Mom, you have to come see this. And one of our cacti, had this giant pink bloom on it. And it was this little tiny like cactus the size of your like, 2 hands or something. But it had spent all this time when it was nurtured in the right way with the sun and not being overwatered because cacti hate being overwatered.
Mhm.
And I had not seen a more radiant flower come out of this cactus. And we just sat there and celebrated it. And it was such an important moment for me because that represented strong-willed kids to me. If you
Mm.
do the work and you see them with integrity and you trust in their humanity, yes, they take a lot of mentorship. Yes, they make a lot of mistakes, which is why compassionate discipline is so important versus punishment. But when you see it through, the flower that they bloom is so radiant, it will take your breath away.
Mm. Oh, I love that. I love that. And also, thank you for that reminder of their humanity. I have worked as a teacher with so many kids, and I've never met a bad kid. Still, I've met kids that
Yes.
make bad choices. Yeah,
Yes.
kids that make mistakes. I've never met a bad kid. I think they all really do want to do good. I truly do. And that's a belief. You'll have to try hard to convince me against that one.
It's true. And I love that saying, like all kids like do good when they can or do better when they can. It's like if you're willing to teach them, but you got to remove the shame and the
Yes.
fear and the overpowering and the intimidation because as long as that's present, they flare up. It takes longer, then you start cooking shame within their
Mm.
souls and that like muddies the water, right? But like if you're just willing to keep teaching,
Yes.
then you can trust that and I think Stella is just such a great example of that because that's what's so fun about having the older kids. How old is your oldest, Emily?
14.
14, right? Yeah. Like I started this work when she was 3, and the first 3 years we were doing things very differently. And so we fully did the 180, we flipped the ship, we started going in a different direction. So now at 17, she's almost 18, she'll be 18 this November. It's like to see everything play out in real life, to see the long-term game and gain of 15 years of doing this work and to see every single theory and strategy come into play in real life, it's just the coolest thing because you're like, it works. It really does work. Like this is, once you get your kids to adult, and even then, I think we'll continue to see it play out because we know the way we raise human souls carries into their 20s, their 30s, their 40s,
Yes.
their 50s, right? It always carries forward, but it is really fun to like really see it play out in real life long term.
Yes. Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah. And that first moment when you see the flower budding and instead of an hour-long meltdown, there's a 3-minute meltdown and you're able to talk
Yep.
afterwards. And you're not melting down along with your kids. You're like, oh, here's some more flowers. I love this analogy.
Yes.
I might borrow that.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Do it.
Okay, fantastic. You've talked a lot about not using the fear and not using the shame and everything that's really going to push us down into that emotional brain, right? So I know teacher wise, if kids are feeling afraid, if they're feeling ashamed, if they're feeling any sort of intimidation, they're unable to learn anything more than like basic survival things. And so from a teacher standpoint, that makes so much sense. From a logistical standpoint, I know sometimes it's really hard because we're like, okay, if I'm not punishing them for biting their sister, how are they going to learn their lesson? That's the hand-me-down parenting, of course. So what are some tactics that we can do? Parents that are like, okay, I understand why I need to shift from fear and intimidation. How do we shift more into the empowerment based?
Yeah. Well, I think, a lot of that comes down to just a lot of like pre-work before we get into the strategies, so to speak, right? So a lot of what we talked about, the mindset, the nervous system healing, like understanding modeling and why that's so important and being able to become aware of like what you're modeling is like what children are going to soak in, because since most of what children learn is caught, not taught, like all of that stuff is we spend a lot of time there and then we move into like the actual strategies, which is what is so important, right? I mean, it's an equal part of the importance, but you have to learn some strategies on how to respond with firm kindness and then also with compassionate discipline. And firm kindness, I would say, like when it comes to tactical, firm kindness and power struggle dissolving strategies is an art, right? So we teach a 4-step process that we teach in what we call our firm and kind parenting blueprint. People can just Google that and find the information really easily. I teach these 4 steps. That's an example of once you memorize that, you can make strong agreements with your kids, teach them the why behind your strong boundaries, because some of the stuff that drives us the craziest as parents, it's reoccurring. Bedtime, meal times, getting to school on time, keeping your hands to yourself, like it's reoccurring. It doesn't come out of the blue. Most of the stuff we have the ability to make agreements with our children and do it from a place of true collaboration to help a child understand why does this rule, this firm boundary, this fence benefit you, not just me because I said so. And then that 4-step process we teach in the Firm and Kind Parenting Blueprint, we then follow that up with empathy when they start to push back in the moment and we come beside them. That relaxes their nervous system. We don't like criminalize them. We're like, hey, we get it. This makes sense. Why you don't want to turn off the TV and what was our agreement? And then we move into choices, which is an empowerment prompting strategy. So that's an example of like actual strategic. Once you memorize that and you get coaching on that and you follow through over and over again, you start to see, oh, I can remain very firm on a boundary without raising my voice, without threatening to take their iPad away, without demeaning them and telling them they're acting like a selfish, entitled brat. Like you start to see, oh, okay, I can be firm and kind. But to do that, there is a lot of like emotional work, right? Like
Yeah, that's what we're
healing.
here for.
That's what you're here for, Emily. You got that dialed. I mean, there's just a lot of clearing. There's a lot of like compassion with yourself when the knee-jerk rise happens. For me, I mentioned it earlier. I think it took me 8 years to stop yelling, probably a little bit longer to stop slamming doors. So you just have to have compassion with yourself. On the other side of that is power struggle dissolving strategies, where again, it's just strategies like that we teach here. So like things like, I'll give you an example. Friendly guidance is like that replaces a threat, or like if a kid comes home from school and they just drop their backpack and they know that the boundary or the rule or the request is that they hang their backpack on a hook in the garage or whatever. I need to work on this one with my 14-year-old because I've been bickering, I've been nagging a little bit lately. Friendly action is a tactic where you just pick up the backpack and you take it over to them. You put it in their hands, look them straight in their eyes. And loving touch, we say, is the road to a child's mind, often because kids are just like little tornadoes of fun, and you just touch brings them back down to earth. Look in their eyes, which we often say is like the windows to our souls, that creates connection, and you just say, hook, thank you. And it's a very like chill way of setting a very strong boundary, and it works very, very well. But that's just one of the 10 strategies that we teach, that if a parent can see that through and not lose their mind before, like which again is the mindset part, is the healing part, then boom, they start to do that as a pattern, and they see, oh, okay, yeah, I might have to do this a lot and I might have to practice it a lot. And a strong-willed kid is going to give you lots of opportunities, because again, they learn through doing.
Yes.
But then it just becomes like part of your daily life, and you're not like, why can't this kid be different? It's just more like, oh, it's another day where I'm going to do friendly guidance probably 4 times today,
Mhm.
and then they accept the lesson a lot easier, because again, it's not coming from this disconnection place of hypocrisy.
Mhm. So good, especially when we combine neurodivergence with that. I was
Yeah.
on a call this morning with our neurodivergent survival kit students, and we were talking executive function skills, how to go from being motivated to actually doing, and learning them for ourselves, teaching them to our kids. And I let them know my husband still puts my shoes away for me like 4 days a week. And just reminding them, like, I'm here, I have like multiple college degrees, I'm running an online business, and I forget to put my shoes away. It's okay. He could probably use some tactics to to get me to put them away too. But at the
Teach him
same
about
time, it's some loving touch.
yes.
But at the
Babe,
same time, like,
remember?
just remembering it's rarely a kid trying to get back at you. And even if the kid consciously is like, okay, I'm mad at mom, so I'm gonna put this on the ground right now to show her I'm mad at her. Like, can we just accept that sometimes we do things when we're mad too, to show people we're mad?
Yeah.
And that it's not a bad kid. Again, it's just, okay, you can totally be mad at me. Let's come up with other ways to be mad at me. I taught that to
Yeah.
one of my kids, and for probably every day for a week, whenever I did anything the kid didn't like, he would march to the kitchen, pull out some paper, pencil, and a tape, and would write mom in big letters and cross them out and tape them on my door. And so for a while, I had a collection, and I was so proud of those. I was like,
Yes.
oh my goodness, what an appropriate
That was
way
his
to
way
tell
of
me
saying,
he's
I'm mad at
mad.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Yeah. We always teach our people, like our kids, you are always completely okay to be mad at me. Do you know that? Like, you can be as mad as you want as me. Now we're going to talk about actions for sure, but that
Yes.
feeling is like, so I love that. Mom with a big X out of it. It's like, what a healthy way to just say, I'm feeling really mad right now, and I'm going to leave it at that, and we'll be
Tape
back
it
in a
to your
minute.
door. Yeah.
Yes. Totally. Yeah. A lot of times with the backpack and shoes and that kind of stuff, it's like, I think our knee-jerk thought is like they're lazy. They don't care about us. Like then,
Yeah.
and but a lot of times when I look at the modeling there, I'm like, I'm always like, I'm gonna go to modeling 99% of the time. For that example I gave, I mean, I just model it out the yin yang. Like Terry, my husband, sends me the funniest memes. He sent me one yesterday about, it was like one of those ones where it has like the old picture of like the 1800s woman, and she's like in a drawing on something, and she was in a chair, like a fainting chair. Remember how they used to have fainting chairs and they had really tight
Corset.
corsets?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, this one was the clothing chair, and this was for all the clothes that aren't quite clean enough to put in the closet but aren't quite dirty enough to put in the hamper, and they just pile up on your chair. And he was like, the clothing chair. I'm like, yeah, that's me. I always have one of those. And so that is the analogy of like, that's why my little boy, he sees me doing that in my room, so it makes sense why he does that in the living room. He's like, why would I put away something when I'm gonna just pick it up right here tomorrow? So if I really want to change his behavior, I actually know how to get it done, Emily. It's to clean up my own behavior
Oh,
around
I
that
love it.
clothing chair.
I love it. I'm here for the clothing chair too. That's great. I love it. Okay, Wendy, I know you have a free gift that you want to give to everyone. Can you tell us about that?
I would love to. Yeah. So if someone is listening and they're like, oh, I so relate to this idea of a kid being strong-willed, maybe you realize you are definitely raising a strong-willed kid. We have a quick start learning bundle that will teach you some secrets to thriving with that strong-willed kid. It comes with a learning guide. It comes with a free 1 hour interactive workshop with me. And your listeners can grab it at freshstartfamilyonline.com/power bundle.
Okay.
And then we have a podcast too. Come find us at the Fresh Start Family Show.
Amazing. Because they're already on a podcast. So just look you up.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, Wendy, as we're leaving, do you have any final message for moms who are raising neurodivergent kids who are really trying to raise an emotionally healthy family? What message would you give to them?
My message would just to be, I am just so grateful to be in community with other parents who truly care enough to show up. And when you find a community like that, that I know you guys have in Emily as you're listening to this, and that I know we have here at Fresh Start Family, and collectively we have as my cellular network of humanity, it's just so much fun, right? And so I find an incredible amount of joy in expanding your heart, learning new tools, strengthening your family. And so I think my message of encouragement is just to say thank you. Thank you to your listeners for staying in this conversation and getting excited about it, like I think Emily and I do, and just being willing to do the work to heal and grow and upgrade your legacy and end painful generational cycles and really care enough about your children to maybe do things differently than how you were raised, because it's just an absolute joy to be beside you doing that.
So beautiful. Thank you for joining us today, Wendy.
Thank you, Emily.
So glad you could join us, as always. If you haven't yet picked up your free conflict resolution cards for kids, oh, that's upside down. You can go and grab 50 printable, downloadable cards for free at emily-hamblin.com. And if you haven't yet signed up for my class where I help you and your neurodivergent family with emotional regulation for free, then please visit emily-hamblin.com/class, and I would love to have you attend my next free masterclass where I will lay out a step-by-step process to help you and your family with emotional regulation, but without the burnout and the overthinking and all that. Thank you so much for joining me on this week's podcast episode. Can't wait to see you in 2 more weeks. Have a fantastic day.